Hey, this is Darren Miller from the band 96 Bitter Beings, and you're listening to the RockStop with Chris Contra.
All right, welcome into the RockStop. Chris Contra here. And man, I got a good show for you guys tonight because joining me on the program, a very talented musician and songwriter. He is front of the band CKY, Foreign Objects, World Under Blood, and now most recently 96 Bitter Beings. The man himself, Darren Miller. How's it going, man?
Thank you. Hi, how are you? I appreciate the comments and the compliments.
Absolutely. So
that's a lot of bands, isn't it? That's too many bands. and you know what? Besides, of course, from CKY, I still have all of those bands going. So
right, which is very impressive. And CKY, you put them on the map. They're still a form of CKY going, I guess, today. But I don't know. Somewhat.
You know, we all. To be honest, to be fair, like in the beginning, we all put ourselves on the map. We all had different jobs. My job, of course, was to write and write songs and lyrics and stuff like that. And the other guys had jobs. Chad handled the business side, Jess handled touring and some other stuff. But it was creatively, it was the songwriting came from my heart. So
and the riffs, the guitar riffs that you've made.
Yes, I am a. Yeah. I love writing guitar riffs. Yeah. I love it. And
I mean, you have some incredibly identifiable riffs. When people hear, your guitar riffs, they know, I think, exactly who they're coming from.
And you know what? Even when I experiment with different genres, like World Under Blood, people can still tell it's me. Even though I'm trying to break free from like the rock riffs and I'm doing death metal and Foreign Objects and all that stuff, I still get people that say, I can tell it's Darren. And I don't know why or what it is about my writing style that people can identify with immediately, because I always try to change my style when I'm doing different genres.
Yeah. So, does that bother you at all?
No, I love it. No, I love it because it means there's something about me that I don't know, that I can't even comprehend,
Right.
So, no, I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it.
And you're continuing that legacy now with your new band, 96 Bitter Beings, the name coming off of CKY's biggest hit, I guess.
Well, not on paper. Our biggest hit on paper was Familiar Realm. I think it hit like number 22 on rock radio, and Flesh in the Gear was number 24. But because we licensed our first album to Universal, they refused to put out a single because they weren't making the lion's share of the album. So 96 Quite Bitter Beings is kind of like an anomaly because it became a hit, quote, unquote, just through word of mouth. Oh, no one plays it on the radio. You will never hear it on the radio. But there were other songs from CKY that were definitely on the radio, like Flesh in the Gear and Familiar Realm, and at one point, Attached at the Hip was number 1 in Philadelphia for like 3 or 4 straight weeks. And, part of it was because it was, from our hometown, 93 WMMR, I think was the station, or 101, I forget what it was. One of the big stations in Philly just kept playing Attached to the Hip over and over. And, radio stations are pretty much designated to play songs that record companies feel are the singles. And, that whole business used to work out. Not anymore, I don't think. But, the record company would say, okay, we're releasing a new single by this band. This is what you play on the radio. And whatever goes down between them is their business. Maybe they pay them some money or get them some coke or hookers or whatever.
Right.
But, payola was a big problem in the industry. And I think that was part of the reason why the industry, collapsed.
Yeah.
But 96 Quite Bitter Beings was a hit all on its own by word of mouth, and it still puts food on my table. And the reason why I named the new band 96 Bitter Beings, it was because that song did so much for us and so much for me. And literally, I wrote it in a bedroom, in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And it's become this big thing that everybody recognizes. And I didn't, a lot of people say, oh, he's just trying to, continue the CKY thing, can't let it go. I don't need to let it go. That's part of my history. I wrote that song, you know, I wrote those songs. Why should I let go? Why should I not be able to play my own songs?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of almost all the songs I've written, you know. There's a couple duds in there over the years. But, I mean, pretty much, you know, that song is like the song that, you know, puts bread on the table, and it's just legendary to a lot of people. They just love it, and why not, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time that I heard that song was in one of the Jackass episodes, and I immediately was like, man, what band is this? I got to check them out. And, you know, the rest is history. I became a huge fan of you guys. And
right.
And you guys got them to see.
I was in one episode of Jackass.
You did one episode.
I did the first or second episode of Jackass.
Was that the one where you guys did the Wake Up for Phil?
Yes. And you know what? It's funny because that's how I met my wife.
Really?
Because I wore a T-shirt of my wife's face on that show, and she saw that show on MTV, and that's how we got in touch.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And I really, really insinuated myself into my own relationship because I had our manager at the time call the people that were working on the movie Return to Sleepaway Camp, and I said, I want to go to that set. And at first I wanted to actually audition for the part of Mickey who gets boiling water in the fourth Sleepaway Camp. I auditioned for that on videotape, didn't hear anything about it, and I said, you know what, fuck this, I'm going there. We're all going there. And I flew out. Didn't see Felissa for a few minutes when we got there, and then she came out wearing this red dress, hot as hell, and this really nice maroon hat that I just thought looked gorgeous, and she had this amazing luscious lips, and I was just like, totally smitten. So, and that in that weekend that we were there, you know, hanging around that movie set and doing a little, you know, cameo, I fell in love with her. Wow. And we were up for 3 straight days. And the fact that she said, you know, we got in the same bed together, and she said, no way. That's what made me respect her. Yeah. So at that point, I was used to any, you know, I wanted a relationship with her, so I didn't want her to be like, okay, let's, you know, do this fling and get it over with. I didn't want it to be like that. And usually that's what I was used to. Yeah. So I'm glad it didn't work out that way. I'm glad she said, no way, buddy. And I said, okay, hands off. And then, you know, it developed into something that was beyond my wildest dreams. I just said, this is what I want, and I'm going to get it. If everybody out there had that same kind of mindset that I want it, I'm going to get it, they can. They will. You can do it. You can get whatever you want. As long as you're dead set on it, the universe will help you. Insinuate yourself. Say, ooh, am I in the wrong place? Oh, I'm sorry. How are you doing? My name is Deron. You know, you insinuate yourself in any situation, whether you're crashing a party or you're showing up somewhere that you don't belong. Eventually, if it's meant to be, you can talk yourself into any situation you want and get what you want. Yeah. And I've always been about that.
That's always, you've had that mindset for a long time, huh?
You know what? Ever since I was 10, before that, maybe 8 when I started playing guitar. You know, my parents put me through piano lessons at first, and I had a really angry teacher who was very impatient with me. And I said, no, I want to learn guitar. So I ended up with a few guitar teachers, and I taught myself, and I swear to God, I spent countless hours playing this thing. You know, I had a really cheap JCPenney guitar that my friend across the street, my mom, talked to his mother. He gave me the guitar, $50 JCPenney guitar. It's funny because I say JCPenney because they don't carry guitars, so you can imagine how bad this guitar was. So, you know, I played that for a long time, and just, you know, it was pretty much a way to kill time because I wasn't invited to parties and I didn't have many friends, and I figured the time would be better well spent if I spent it in my room playing guitar. Yeah. The parties would come later. I knew that. Yeah. And so would the friends.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, excellent advice again for anybody listening. That you got to really work on your craft, and you certainly have. And there's a lot of kids that pick up guitars and really never make it anywhere. They give up on it. They become discouraged or whatever. But you really stuck to it, and I mean, you're living.
Well, you know what? In 1991. There was a lot of people that became successful for not being able to play their instruments, and people called it grunge.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah. And it seemed
new
like
new metal.
Right.
Metal as well.
That came a little, and it seemed like those record labels just picked up off that and were signing all these bands that really weren't, didn't show much talent, and they were just signing them because it was a trend at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, record labels will go along with any trend as long as they can make money off of it. And I'm, speaking back in the past when record labels were fluent and
right,
profitable and, had money and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they'll go with anything. If it's like 8-year-old kids that are like screaming Old MacDonald and that becomes famous for some reason, they're going to look for kids that are screaming Jimmy Crack Corn.
Right.
It's just whatever is big at the time.
Yeah, that's the industry. And now you got into music you started forming bands, I guess, the mid-90s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. And so it was right at the height of, that mainstream grunge thing going on. At that time, what were you listening to?
I was getting into, my first real band I joined, I started it in 1991, and it was called This End Up. And I had moved from Marlton, New Jersey to Westchester, Pennsylvania. And my drummer was in my math class, my business math class. And a girl I had a crush on named Maggie hooked me up with the guy that I was actually sitting right next to in class. See, this is fate. This is the universe giving you what you want.
Yeah.
He ended up sitting next to me in class, and he was a drummer named Dave Williams. And then we hooked up with a bass player, and Rich Vose, who is one of the funniest people I've ever met, but he has no social media, no contact, but he's one of my best friends, regardless of how long we go without seeing each other.
Yeah.
He was my first guitar player, and he could shred like a motherfucker. And yeah, at the time, metal was leaving the spotlight, but I wasn't aware of that because I was only 15 years old,
Yeah.
And even though thrash was kind of dying out by 1992, you still had big albums by Metallica and Megadeth and Testament.
Oh, yeah.
And Exodus and Overkill, and all these bands were still on major labels. So I didn't really notice that thrash metal was dead or dying. Plus, I don't think the first This End Up demo tape was really representative of anything mature. So it wasn't until a couple demos later that we did as This End Up that, okay, this is starting to sound professional. This is starting to sound like we could turn into something more modern. And I started to I started to pay attention more to the business and what record labels were looking for, which probably wasn't the best thing to do, but I was very ambitious.
Right. Now,
and I wanted that band to turn into what was going on at the time because we had made our demos and not attracted much interest other than local followings and crazy shows at pizzerias and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, when it started to become serious and I learned a little bit about, record companies and what they like and don't like and the whole business, and you got to be current. I wanted to do the stuff that was current, like Machine Head and Biohazard and Pantera and all that stuff, but I also wanted to put my own staple on it.
Yeah, right.
So, but it didn't matter anyway because eventually the guys in the band wanted to go off to college and I was left without a band, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah.
And then I started Foreign Objects.
Right, which
wasn't marketable at all, but at least I was having a good time playing what I liked.
Yeah, and you guys were doing some gigs around town. Now, I wanted to ask you, you talked about early on just playing guitar in your bedroom over and over and really, getting very good at it. When the first time you got a band together and were playing in a room or in front of people, I mean, what was that feeling like? Was it like, all this hard work's paying off?
Just to have, there was a bar in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and it was called Alibis, and then they changed their name to 15 North, and then they went back to Alibis again, and I think they're closed, but there's a small chance I could be wrong and that they're still alibis. I don't know, but my dream was to get our band booked at Alibis, and it didn't hurt that our drummer's stepdad was the sound guy. So we got booked. I obsessed over this show for months. And I remember it was March 26, 1992 was the first time that I played live in front of a huge crowd. And everybody in that audience was from our high school. And it was just the coolest thing. And I set up so much time worrying and being nervous and making sure that everything was perfect and that I wasn't going to screw up, and just trying to figure out what my stage presence was going to be, what was going to come natural, was I going to be able to play even though I was anxious as hell. Yeah. And it was just a huge thing. And then shortly after that, on May 1st, 1992, we played our high school Battle of the Bands, and we won. And that was something that I never thought would happen. That is still one of the highlights of my life, is winning that Battle of the Bands.
Did you guys play, what songs did you play? Originals, or was it covers?
All originals.
Oh, wow.
I think we got 20 minutes. We may have played 4 or 5 songs.
And you guys
But
won.
we had an amazing shredder in Rich Vose. We had a good drummer, a good bass player, and me. The vocalist, not so good. He ended up getting fired, and I replaced him playing guitar and singing, and that started that situation that would follow me for the rest of my career as vocals guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, to be fair, even though he couldn't sing, he had really cool stage presence.
Yeah.
And high school kids can't tell whether somebody can sing or not in a metal band.
Yeah.
So it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you took over as the front man, and as you said, you've been doing that ever since. And you were talking about your days in Foreign Objects when you started that band, and then it became CKY. How did the CKY Home videos come about?
Well, we ended up having an instrumental song in a video made by a skateboard company in Westchester that was called, Christ, I can't even remember. Mm-hmm. But in town, in the town of Westchester, there was a skateboard store. And they put out a video locally, and we had an instrumental song. Fairman's, that's the name of the store. And we did an instrumental song, and it was called the Fairman's Song, just because we didn't have a better title. No lyrics or anything. But Fairman's put out that video, and it was very successful. And we started to get a lot of reception and mail, snail mail and email about this song. Who is this band? What is this song? And then Bam got a spot on a 5-minute spot on another video called Jump Off a Building, which we did a song for that as well. And that became very successful. We got a lot of reception from that. Thousands and thousands of people loved Bam's part of that video, and then they also loved the song. It was almost like the two went together naturally.
Yeah.
So I suggested to Bam, we were in his bedroom one night, we were listening to music, and we were talking, I was like, these videos are so successful, why doesn't somebody give you money to make your own video? And he was like, I don't know. So he got a hold of Rob Erickson, who was part of Toy Machine, I think, and Rob Erickson somehow came up with the money, gave it to Bam for us to make our own prank video. And in a pizza place called Amores in Westchester, we were trying to think of a band name, and we went all through these band names. We were Oil for a while, which is a terrible name. And I said, what about I Dismember Mama, which was the name of a really underground horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think we played a show as I Dismember Mama at a place called Upstairs at Nick's. It's like Nick's Roast Beef. And then upstairs, it was a Nick's Roast Beef restaurant, and then upstairs they had bands. And we played one show as I Dismember Mama. And then we figured, you know what? That's already a movie. It was kind of like I was copying My Bloody Valentine, the band, which also is a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting in this pizza place and I'm just like, Can't Kill Yourself. And we were like, that's pretty cool. So we were called Can't Kill Yourself for the first album. And then when we hooked up with Volcom Records, they wanted us to change it to CKY because the owner of Volcom, his friend, had just killed himself.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't want to put out, he didn't want to put out a record of a band called Can't Kill Yourself after his best friend had killed himself. So they said, just take the acronym, CKY.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, all right, but can we call the album Can't Kill Yourself? He's like, no. You can call it Camp. We're like, all right, CKY Camp. And with the video, we said, let's be a group of people that are creative and do different things. Not just a band, but also all of our friends in high school that never fit in with anybody. Bam, Ryan Dunn, Chris Rabb, Brandon DiCamillo, Ted Webb, which is Mustard Man, Rake Young.
Yeah, right.
Ted Webb was one of my best friends. We used to jam way before CKY because he's a little bit of a guitar player. And we used to hang out all the time. And everybody that kind of felt outcasted in high school became part of this group called CKY. So when Rob Erickson gave money for us to make a video, we called it CKY. We'll film these pranks, and that's how it started. And these things, I'm telling you, took off.
Yeah.
They sold tens of thousands of copies. MTV got word of it. MTV took the CKY thing and the thing that Johnny Knoxville was doing with Steve-O. I forget what that was called. Something from Big Brother, maybe. We put the two together, and that's how it became Jackass.
Wow. So there it is, yeah.
That's the true story. If anybody else is going to take full credit for that, they're full of shit.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you had, you guys in Westchester doing all your videos, and then, whatever, Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine, or they were doing their stuff. I'm not even sure where, but
it was East Coast, West Coast,
and it all came together into that perfect.
And
story.
Then MTV saw dollar signs. They said, let's mix these two groups of hooligans and do something and exploit this. And our music ended up being the soundtrack to our segments on Jackass.
Right.
And also on some segments of what Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine were doing. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happened. I mean, we got labeled the Jackass Band, but at the same time, they were also using a lot of other bands, but it just didn't click.
Right. Yeah, your music really clicked perfectly with that everything that was going on at that time.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then we also got labeled skate punk, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean,
just because of the videos.
People know. Some people don't know how to match bands with genres,
Right, right.
That certainly didn't match. And then when nu metal came along, we were a nu metal band. It was just like, is anybody listening to our music? Don't just lump us into the most current successful trend.
Right.
We're not a nu metal band. We despise nu metal bands. Yeah. We had to play with so many nu metal bands that you wouldn't even remember to this day. Cocky as shit, arrogant. All these people that had major label deals that sold no records and disappeared. Yeah. We played with these awful nu metal bands that were just gone 2 years later, and we're still doing our thing. And it's like, what do we call CKY? It's CKY.
Right. Exactly.
I took all the influences from all different genres of music and created that sound. So you can't match it with something that's trendy and new, because what I was writing wasn't new, didn't sound new. It just sounded fresh. Mm-hmm. It didn't sound like anything that anyone else was doing. It just sounded like something else you couldn't categorize.
Right.
And that's what became the CKY sound. Because my job was to write the songs. Eventually our first album all by itself sold so many records, the major label had to sign us because they were idiots if they didn't.
Right.
And
that was volume 1, right? That was the
volume. Yeah, when we put out volume 1 ourselves, it was a huge success, and we only put out 2,000, 2,500 maybe. When we did it through Volcom Skate and Clothing Company, they were trying to start up a label, but they didn't have anything to really sell. And they had a lot of bands, but the only record that was selling was ours. And labels started to take notice of that because there were ads in magazines about CKY's Volume 1, like, the biggest underground thing right now, and, you know, major labels are, like, all over that shit.
Yeah.
So instead of, like, trying to, like, send out demo tapes to major labels, it was much better at that time to have them come to you and beg you to sign them instead of us begging them. So that's the position that we were in, and then from there, we licensed Volume 1 to Universal, and then Universal gave us money to do IDR, and An Answer Can Be Found.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I wanted to ask...
And they let us produce our own records, too.
Oh, now that's huge. I mean, was that like a sticking point for you guys at all? I mean,
It was contingent on that, yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Because it allowed us to keep all of our advance money.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about Volume 1, the cover, the original cover that was going to be Our Bud Dwyer. The reason that didn't happen, was it because of that story you were saying earlier about the guy and, the suicide? Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that right after that happened, and his name is Richard Woolcott, right after Richard Woolcott's friend killed himself, we had already pressed 1,000 copies on Volcom with that original cover, and they made us destroy them. Well, being the collector that I am, I grabbed 20 to 30 copies before they actually took the covers and the J cards out from the back, like the spine cards from the back cover, and made us put them through the paper shredder.
Wow.
We were actually paper shredding the covers and the tray cards. And I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing because they're not related. It's censorship. I mean, It's like, it's not serious. It's not like, Wolcott, we named our band after your dead friend. I mean, no. Mm-hmm. It was just an innocent, ridiculous, offensive name. That's all it was. It was just supposed to be fun. It wasn't supposed to be poking fun at people that killed themselves.
Right.
So the whole thing was ridiculous, but, people abuse power, and that's what happens. So
yeah. So
whatever.
So yeah,
but that's how we ended up with the final Volume 1 cover that was actually the back cover of the original Bud Dwyer one. Mm-hmm. But the Bud Dwyer cover was drawn by Rob Erickson, who gave us the money to do our first video. So there you go.
Yeah. For people who don't know, that our Bud Dwyer was a politician, got into some trouble there with corruption and things, and then he killed himself on live TV during a press conference. So that was going to be the cover for Volume 1, a drawing of, I guess, the moment that he killed himself.
A very loose drawing on that concept.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, what a way to go out, on live TV. Then came IDR, and we had success, and Answer Can Be Found. We felt like we weren't getting treated well at Island and Universal, so we left, and Island owned part of Roadrunner. So our guy at Island said, hey, if you're going to sign to Roadrunner, I'm still going to be working with you guys anyway, because we own 65% of Roadrunner. Right after we signed with Roadrunner, Warner Brothers bought Island's share. So we ended up on Roadrunner with nobody really wanting to work with us.
Oh man, what did you? I mean,
which brings us to the discouragement of not getting love at Roadrunner, even though the guy that signed us is one of my best friends, but he was the only one that liked us, and the record didn't do that well. I mean, it did okay for the time, because record sales started to really go down year by year.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2009, selling 40,000 and 50,000 copies was bad. Now, if you sell 50,000 copies of a record, you're a goddamn arena band.
Yeah.
That's how it works now.
I know.
But onward to, the discouragement. We had to work harder to gain, to make less money, and things just got so anxious and so much tension that... Tension
within the band.
Within the group.
Yeah. I was just going to say, because, the tension is, in fucking tribute band that plays, carnivals once a month could have tension within, those four guys, personalities and ego and all that stuff. But when you add success, which you guys had to a band, I mean, it's got to be 10 times that.
Right. Yeah, it was bad. Mm-hmm. It was bad. And I get really, really depressed sometimes, and I could win the lottery and still not be able to get out of bed. And then there's times when I could be begging or picking out of dumpsters and be the happiest motherfucker in the world. My depression is not based on what's going on in my life. It's a mental illness that affects me and a lot of creative people. So,
and you can't quite pinpoint it.
Well, it happened to me when I was a teenager. When I think when I lost my first band, when I lost This End Up to College, I said, "Oh my God, I put so much time and creative energy, and we all were getting along, and we were going places, and now they want to leave, and I have no band."
Yeah.
And I had a panic attack watching the Brady Bunch movie in the theater. I could not breathe.
Wow.
I started to shake and sweat and tremble. I went into the bathroom. I poured some cold water on my face, splashed water on my face, and I said, "I have to go home." I told my brother who took me to the movies, I got to go home. And then eventually, somehow, I started to gain control of muscles that are involuntary, that you don't control them. Like, let's say your heart. You don't tell your heart to beat.
Right.
It just does.
Yeah.
But I had gotten control of a muscle in my throat somehow, subconsciously, and it grew bigger. And like every time I swallowed, I felt this lump in my throat, and I started to panic about it. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until I couldn't breathe. And I had to go to the emergency room, and the doctor said, "Look, you're anxious and you're depressed, and you're gonna be for probably the rest of your life."
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I had started antidepressant medication, and touring started to happen a lot. We were touring a lot, and I would get homesick, and I would self-medicate because the antidepressants weren't always working.
Yeah.
And I was definitely drinking a lot. No drugs, except for prescription, the antidepressants and all that.
Right.
But mixing the drinking that I was doing to numb myself, to allow myself to tour and deal with these guys, started making me sick.
Yeah.
And on the Carver City tour, there was a point where I had this ritual down where I would wake up in the morning hungover, throw up a couple times, do sound check, and then spend the next 6 hours, lying down. So I had a headache. But when it got to the point where I was starting to throw up blood, I said, "Okay, I got to take a break from this."
Yeah.
And at that same time, interest in our band started to wane anyway. So I said, "You know what? I'm in a sinking ship. I'm in the Titanic. The band's never going to be bigger than it is." And I pretty much just went home.
Wow.
Never quit. I never officially quit that band. Didn't sign any papers because we are an LLC where, it's an incorporated company.
Yeah.
I never wanted to quit that band, but some of the other guys, or one of the other guys in the band, wanted me to look like I had quit, so that he could take over the front spot.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
So,
Problem is, you don't kick out your songwriter and your major creative force and your singer. You don't do that.
Absolutely not. And you guys,
I took a break.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I was just going to say,
go ahead.
You guys had such a loyal following. I mean, the CKY Alliance, and they, I think, will completely agree with what you were just saying. That's not CKY without Deron Miller.
As much as I hate to comment on something that sounds so arrogant and egotistical, I'm actually just being confident.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, I see that from...
most people, you know what? You're arrogant unless somebody gives you permission to be confident.
Right.
Like, I could say, "Oh, man, I was such a terrible singer for that band. I was such a horrible guitar player." And the fans could say, "What, are you crazy? You were the best, man. You were fucking kicked ass." But if I said, if it wasn't for me, that band wouldn't have gone anywhere, and I was the guy that did all the artistic shit, and I was the one that wrote the songs, and I was the best guy to front that band and all that shit, all of a sudden you're arrogant.
Yeah.
So you kind of need permission from other people when you're trying to, when you're putting yourself down. You need people to give you the permission to pat yourself on the back.
Right. And
with that said, you know what? I was a damn good frontman to that band, and I was the best frontman to that band, and I was the best singer for that band, and I was the best writer and guitar player for that band. And I don't care what anyone says. They could say that's arrogant, whatever, but that's the truth.
I think most of the CKY Alliance would absolutely agree with that as well. I know I certainly do. I mean, hearing the songs that you wrote, being performed by by the band now, it doesn't sound like CKY. It's just a fact. It's a fact.
I wouldn't know because I've never bought a ticket.
Yeah, right.
All I'm doing is going by what my music sounds like now.
Right, absolutely. And
with 3 other guys that know and want to know how to play their instruments.
Yeah.
So when we play live now and we play these songs that I wrote 10, 15 years ago, they sound the way they should sound.
Absolutely.
I never considered us to be a good live band.
Really?
96 Bitter Beings. No, I despised the way we sounded live.
Huh.
Because nobody knew how to play the song.
I guess on the album is what you preferred, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. We were a studio band that tried to go out and do live, and we sounded horrible. You know?
Right. And I just want to say real quick, I saw a gig that you guys played, your new band, 96 Bitter Beings. You did about a month ago at the Whiskey A Go-Go. Mm-hmm. And, man, I got to say, I just saw clips online. I wasn't there or nothing, but you guys sounded super tight, and it was fucking awesome.
And you know what the biggest compliment we got from the Whiskey was?
What's that?
They said, we got to be honest, we didn't put a dime into promoting your band playing here. We didn't put up any ads. We didn't do anything. You sold 200 tickets. We want to have you back in January. We're going to do a full campaign, full promotion. So we have another gig there January 11th.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I'm trying to get out of L.A. I'm trying to get the band out of L.A. So I have meetings actually tomorrow with an agency who books the U.S., and I'm also in the middle of booking a U.K. tour.
Oh man! Yeah. If I'm really looking forward if you guys ever come through Chicago to check.
Oh yeah, we will.
Out. Yeah,
we will. I would never miss Chicago or Illinois.
Yeah,
great. It's great, but I'm going off the confidence that I believe in the next album, Synergy Restored, which is by far, and this is not a soundbite. I'm not trying to promote something that's bullshit. The next album, and Chris Rabb has heard it. My brother has heard it. Very few people have heard it. A couple labels have heard it. They came to me saying, "This is the best. This is the shit you should have been doing."
Yeah.
And I say, "You're right. You're right." But at the same time, now I'm producing these albums with our guitar player Ken, who's a really good engineer and a really good, talented guitar player. The guy shreds like crazy, and I have some help writing too. So the burden of writing a full album is no longer on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And
does that like make you less pressure on you, of course? And but are you like a kind of control? Do you want that control? When I ask for help in writing, I want somebody to say, "Deron, here's a song I wrote." And whether it's a demo or whether they're going to play it for me and sing it. Mm-hmm. If I could get somebody, and it hasn't happened yet, if I could get somebody to come to me, one of my band members to come to me and say, "Deron, here's a finished song that I would like to put on our album," I would be so fucking happy, especially if it was good. Yeah.
But right now, I'm very satisfied with the writing situation that we have going on, which is that our bass player and our guitar player contributes riffs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we have a song called Blood Rock Mania.
Yeah.
That
I heard you guys play that at the Whiskey.
We played it live, but just like CKY, when we used to play those songs live, they sound nothing like what the finished record sounds like.
Oh, okay.
There's a live sound to the stuff that my bands do, and there's a recorded sound to the stuff that my bands do.
Mm-hmm.
And the record, Synergy Restored, is like a pop, dark, bloody masterpiece. It's storytelling, it's campfire tales, it's good, it's poppy, it's not too technical, it's not all over the place, it's not overproduced and overlayered. It's the perfect style. It's like the pinnacle of what I've been trying to do since I was 15.
Wow.
And the people that have heard it are just like, Jesus fucking Christ. This is it. This is the album you should have put out.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I mean, when do you think it'll get in the hands of your fans?
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Campaign isn't even a year old.
Right. You put that out late.
And we want to do some touring for that, because that album ended up being kind of like a look how versatile we are, not in a bad way.
Right.
Not like trying to show off.
Right, but you did show different aspects of what you guys can do. I thought that was very cool to hear, you know. I mean, the Michael Jackson cover, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do Beat It. We have a little joke song in the beginning, because my music has always had a little bit of sense of humor, or you know, that usually is lost on people, but I try to add a sense of humor to our songs, even if people can't figure it out. But you know, if you listen to Still Unstable, Still at Large, and then on and on and on, it's like, is that the same band? That's the reaction that I liked, and that's the reaction that I wanted for that first record.
Yeah.
But the new one, the one that hasn't come out yet, is more each song is in the same vein. Even though they were all recorded on different days and different sessions, they are more of, oh, that's Deron Miller's new band, and this is his best record.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it.
That's awesome.
Because I play it all the time, and I don't play any of my old records at all.
So
I'm really, really excited and proud of the album that no one has yet heard except for a handful of people.
So it's done. I mean, the tracks are laid down. It's all pretty much...
There's a couple things I want to tweak, but yeah, I could pretty much say it's 99% done.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, dude. I can't wait to hear it. And
12
songs.
A lot
of people are 12 songs?
Maybe 11. There's a 12th one that I started that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
If I get the time to go in and finish it and do the vocals, it's going to be killer. But right now, I'll say 11.
Okay.
But it could be 12.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, most of the songwriting that you did for this album, I mean, you kind of mentioned it a little bit. Does it touch upon, you know, life experiences in recent years, themes like that?
I try to leave the World Under Blood record, death metal. You kind of have to write about what you don't like about life.
Yeah,
and that might have touched upon some personal stuff, but you know, Foreign Objects, the Galactic Prey record, which I'm really proud of. I love that album. That's just storytelling. That's science fiction storytelling.
Uh-huh.
This Synergy Restored and Campaign are storytelling for the most part. I don't write songs about how my wife and I got in a fight. You know, I don't think that I was right. You know,
Right.
I don't write songs that have anything to do with my personal life.
Okay.
Because I like to write about fiction.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So nothing's autobiographical.
Yeah. So the album title that's going to be on the new album, Synergy Restored. Anything you wanted to say about that title?
It just said, you know, a guy at a record label said to me, he's like, after I left the other band, the record company said, well, it's kind of good that you left the band because the synergy was gone and you were never going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And I was like, true. That's kind of why I kind of like taper it off. Not like I stopped taking phone calls or anything, but it was like, it got to the point where we weren't really getting shows. And when we did get shows, we came home like negative in the red.
Wow.
And that's, you know, it's okay to play shows and not make any money because I'm not driven by finances. You know, I don't really care about expensive cars or jewelry or anything. Like, I didn't spend my money on that. I spent my money on a house so I could put a roof over my family's head.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I don't buy anything. So money doesn't really interest me. I don't need to be a millionaire.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? When I did have a ton of money in the bank, I was unhappy as fuck.
Wow.
So I'm no longer turned on by money. But what does bother me is when I have to pay out of my own pocket because the band that used to be successful is no longer successful. So I'm in the red. I can't be gone for 3 weeks on tour and come home with nothing.
Right. You still got to make a living. I mean, this is your job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people resent that. A lot of people resent musicians who complain that they don't get paid. You know, it's a job. People resent the fact, not everybody, but a lot of people resent the fact that you're making money doing what you want to do because they're not. And that's the only reason.
Yeah, that's...
It's envy. It's jealousy. It's envy. Mm-hmm. I worked my ass off to make sure that I ended up with a job that I liked, that I wanted to do. It wasn't luck. Nobody picked me out of a fucking box.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I busted my ass, and it's hard fucking work.
Exactly. Like I was saying earlier, I mean, there's so many kids that pick up a guitar, and, you know, if the shit doesn't go their way right away, they get discouraged, give it up, go to get another job. You stuck with it in spite of hard times and shit, and, you know, you're living proof of, you know, that you did make it, and you absolutely deserve to be making a living off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I mean, think of it this way. Touring, every day is 24 hours. You get to play, 2 hours on stage a day?
Yeah.
How glamorous are the other 22 hours?
Exactly, right.
Well, my example is getting up in the morning and throwing up blood because I drank too much the day before. Does that sound luxurious? And, that doesn't sound like a life of luxury.
I mean, people don't understand, you know, being on the road is brutal at times, and you get that moment there of the crowd, you know, adulation, all that stuff is, like you said, really great at that moment. But the other hours in the day can be so brutal. A lot of
torture.
A lot of people are not
torture.
made for, you know, road life and stuff. I know you said, you know, in CKY toward the end you were really, really struggling. I mean, is that about you know, people around you as well as yourself causing all that?
It was, you know, I mean, there are people that are claustrophobic that can't even get on an airplane. But think about being on a bus with 10 other guys. You know, the smell, the mess, the smell of marijuana, which I never partook in. The smell of cigarettes, which I did partake in. Just the debauchery, you know, trying to kick the hookers off the bus, you know. Being worried that somebody was going to do something and we were going to get sued for it later.
Damn,
you know, I worried about that stuff, the reality of it. You know, letting a girl on the bus who's drunk and underage and somebody in the band is sticking a fucking beer bottle up her vagina. That could come back to haunt a band real quick.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So that's not a lot of fun either.
Right. Yeah, I don't think...
So anybody... You know what? I would have given my left nut to have somebody come to me during a tour day, before I'm supposed to go on stage, to say, can you help us cut some trees down? Or can you help me build this house? Can you help me with some construction work? Can you do some manual labor while you're waiting to play your show? I would have killed for that.
Really?
Because I had nothing to do for those 22 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know the city. You're in Cleveland, Ohio. You don't know anybody there. You don't know where anything is. What the hell are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to drink. Lesson learned. The thing was is that I needed a break. I wanted to raise my kids to the point where they were self-sufficient and independent, which is what it's going on now. I'm ready to go out on tour, even if it's in a van, because I love the guys I'm working with.
Yeah, very important, super important.
No arrogance, no ego, no, well, I need to be like this, and I need to have this, and I need to have that. None of us have that.
Yeah.
We just want to do it and go out for fun. And I'll find things to keep busy with because I want this second chance, and I want to do what I maybe should have done, which is greet every single motherfucker that buys a ticket and comes through that door.
Yeah.
You know? Spend more time with the fans, but rather than being hungover and saying, oh, Deron, you have an interview. Oh, God, I don't want to do that.
Right.
You know, there's so many days like that where, Jess, you do the interview. No, I don't want to do it. Chad, you do it. No, Deron, do it. Oh, fuck, I got to do an interview.
Yeah.
That was stuff that we took for granted. We should have been on cloud nine.
Yeah.
More people wanting to talk to us, and we blew it. So I'm starting from scratch. I don't want to play empty clubs with an old band. I'll play empty clubs with a new band that might get bigger.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to play empty clubs with a band that was big and is going to die.
Right on, yeah.
So I still have the ambition. I have the drive.
And
I have the creativity.
Yeah, and I like what you said, a second chance kind of to, really, you see what happened in the past and you learn from a lot of that stuff. And now
you sure do.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of time to reflect on it and you have a lot of time to say, I should have done this differently.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't have talked so badly about this person or I just shouldn't have been a dick all around. You know, not always, but you know, when you're hungover and maybe you're buzzed because you're trying to chase your hangover or kill your hangover, you just don't feel like it. It gets old.
Yeah, right. And
that's something that we never should. At least me, I never should have felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm so excited about the music that I'm making now, which I think is better than the music that I made before, and the people that are coming to us with such strong, you know, expectations and excitement.
Yeah.
And the records are selling, and I'm shipping out CDs, and I'm selling vinyl of all this stuff, and it's just going back. It's getting stronger again, and I just want to make sure that I go through it this time not as a fucking total wasteoid, you know?
Right.
And, you know, I want to know the fans. I want to talk to the fans because I get a lot of emails about, you know, people that are into what we do that have some problems. And, you know, a lot of people have said to me, you help change my life, the stuff that you do. And, you know, all bands get that. And that's like one of the best perks of being in a band is that people look up to you and you can give them advice and they take the advice and they use it and their life hopefully turns out better. And that's very satisfying. But I took that all for granted before. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It comes with the territory. You know, a lot of bands do that, and they still do it. But, you know, you see, you know, like we said earlier, you learn from mistakes made. And, you know, you talked a little bit about the exit of CKY, how you didn't really quit and, you know, all that stuff. I mean,
I just came home. What happened was I came home from an Australian tour, hungover. I had a movie shoot, 2 days of shooting, hungover. I mean, there's a movie that's called Caesar Donato's Deadly Christmas. If you watch that movie and you see me, you can tell that I did not have a good time in Australia. You know?
Right.
So, and the reason I didn't have a good time in Australia at that time, I did before, but the second time was because I came home and it was like, you guys are in the red. You didn't make any money doing what you were just doing. And I'm like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
We must be dying off. This isn't working anymore.
Right.
So I didn't quit. I didn't say, you know what, I'm done with this. Fuck you. I didn't officially sign anything. I just kind of got home from Australia and I just rested. Nobody called. Nobody emailed. And then all of a sudden it was, I quit.
Oh, man.
And a certain somebody got the chance to prove that he should have been in the front of the band.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, now there's only 2 people on that stage, so that just goes to show you.
Right. I hear what you're saying. And like the band name, for example, CKY, the fact that they can still use it. I mean, you're the one that came up with that name. I mean, does that irk you at all that they can still use that? Or? Initially
it did, but then I realized it wasn't worth anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, Bam Margera had gone behind my back in 2009 and trademarked that acronym.
Oh.
You can trademark acronyms. You can't trademark words.
Huh.
Unless they're really unique, like Pepsi Cola.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to use Pepsi Cola in a sentence other than the drink Pepsi Cola.
Right.
Can't kill yourself. No one's ever going to use those 3 words unless they're talking about the band. So you can trademark that. He went and trademarked it behind my back. I got, you know, a little tiffed at that, but then I thought, but I lost interest in doing it because it's not valuable anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, people associate it with something from the past.
Right. Right.
You know, we had our run, we had our success. You know, we never had a gold record, and we came pretty close, but we were never like a million-selling band like Skid Row, who everybody wants to get back together.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
You know, how many people want a CKY reunion? Maybe 300? I don't know. But like I said, I'd rather start from the beginning.
Right. Play the songs with a tighter, cohesive unit that you have now.
And you're exactly. And people still listen to the old stuff and I get my royalties for that anyway.
There you go.
So it's fine.
So I mean,
it's fine.
There's a good example of just moving on from things. A lot of people will just wallow in this anger sometimes about things like that.
It showed it showed a lot of disrespect at first, and it was really arrogant to think that you can just I'm taking the mic, I'm taking the guitar.
Yeah.
Dude, you can hardly play guitar. I mean, most of the times you weren't even in the mix and you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, go ahead and try,
Yeah.
And look what happened. Nothing. Failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more than happy to fail in a new band than to go back to that band and end up face down in the dirt,
Absolutely. And yeah, so I'm really pumped about the new album, Synergy Restored. Hopefully it'll be out soon. A lot of exciting momentum, I think, building with the name 96 Bitter Beings and things you guys got going on.
We're gaining new fans every day. The sales for an unsigned band right now. I haven't signed any contract yet, but I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
But the sales for our first record that we own, that's going to be ours, just like Volume 1, Campaign is going to be ours. Synergy Restored is technically ours because we funded it with the help from our fans, which was unbelievably satisfying and really generous.
Yeah.
But there was enough people to fund 2 records because we didn't have a record company to front us money. So now we have a record that's amazing. People are going to, if they love anything that we do, or they haven't heard anything that even CKY did. I mean, a lot of people haven't even heard of CKY. But whatever happens with this, at least I could say with success or failure, this is the pinnacle of my abilities.
Yeah.
This is the best thing I've ever done. And I truly believe that.
And I believe you when I hear you say that.
I believe in what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to stop working on it. I'm going to keep going until I get where I want to be. And if not, at least I tried.
Right. And
but I don't see myself being disappointed in the near future with anything.
Cool.
It's not about money. It's about people finding out about us and coming out to the show so we can fucking tear the fucking venue apart. That's all I care about.
That sounds fucking awesome from this perspective here as well as a fan. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, Deron. It's been awesome talking with you. And
thank you.
So take care, and a big success in the future, man.
All right, thank you, Chris.
All right.
See you later.
Bye-bye.